he's barely accepted the new reality, let alone beginning to accept that he's the one. So then the agent training program is next. And what's interesting here is just kind of like in the going back to the allegory of cave, but Morpheus says, you have to understand most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. So again, just kind of like the well, really two things here: the allegory of the cave. Most people, the prisoners trapped inside, are so dependent on the reality that they know that they would probably instinctively reject a new reality and almost want to go back to their reality in the cave. And at the same time, with the story of Socrates, as he's going out and questioning people, he's doing his best. All he's trying to do is search for knowledge and get the people of Athens to search for knowledge and truth, and realize that that they don't know as much as they think that they know. And people end up hating Socrates and this idea so much that they basically sentence him to death. So moving along, Neo finally meets the Oracle. And there's a lot here. So this is when we'll kind of talk about the scene, what goes on, and then now also I said that we would bring up some more comparisons to the Oracle at Delphi. So on the way, just some of the dialogue to meet the Oracle, Neo says to Morpheus, and she knows what? Everything? Morpheus says she would say she knows enough. Neo, and she's never wrong? That's what he asks. And then Morpheus answers, try not to think of it in terms of right and wrong. She is a guide, Neo. She can help you find your path. And that line right there, we don't realize how profound that is. And it's so important because as we eventually do part 2 of this and discuss the second and third movie, really The Matrix is really a movie about the Oracle. But certainly that wouldn't be as exciting. So we we follow the hero's journey through Neo, and the story is The Matrix is a lot more exciting and interesting and entertaining through the story of Neo. But it really ultimately is the story of the Oracle. But I'll leave you with that for now. As we go inside, a little bit more symbolism. We see the kid with the spoon. It's saying that there is no spoon. He says, "Do not try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon. Then you'll see it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself." A little bit of Buddhism there, and of course, Neo for a moment does bend the spoon, but then is interrupted. But it's a foretelling at that point. Because he's about to meet the Oracle. We're about to find out, is he the one? Because the Oracle is supposed to tell us if he's the one or not. And for a brief moment, we go to foretelling of potential. Neo bends the spoon. So he's able to manipulate the Matrix. So it gives us insight. Maybe he possibly is the one. So let's see here. Some of the things we're going to go over, just kind of point out the scene. When Neo meets the Oracle, he opens a door. He sees an elderly woman. She's sitting on a stool. She's baking cookies. She lights up a cigarette. She tells him not to worry about the vase, and then he breaks it. And she says, what's really going to bake your noodle is would you have broke it if I hadn't told you, mentioned it. All these things are going on, and we'll kind of go through the importance of each. But let's start first with the comparisons to the Oracle of Delphi and how they really set the stage for this. So in The Matrix, in the movie, the Oracle guides Neo into thinking he's not the one. The Oracle never actually says this. Neo does. She simply refers to the know thyself sign hanging above him. However, she's actually guiding Neo because the one must believe he is the one, must know that he is the one. So we have this moment here of she points out the know thyself sign. He for a moment kind of thinks that he's not the one, but she never said it. She kind of just guides him into that thinking. Now, in ancient Greece, when you visit, if one visited the Oracle of Delphi, they were required to climb a staircase at Mount Parnassus. In the movie, visiting the Oracle required you to take an elevator up inside a city building. So in both instances, in the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi, you had to walk up steps. In the movie, you take an elevator up. So in both cases, you kind of have to ascend up to the Oracle. The Oracle of Delphi was an older woman at the Temple of Apollo, and she would be seated on a tripod and would inhale the breath of Apollo, which was really just gas fumes emanating from a chasm in the earth. Then the Oracle would deliver her prophecy. Compared to the Matrix, we also have an older woman who sits on a kitchen stool with 3 legs, a tripod, and she's baking cookies. And she's inhaling the smell of the cookies, and the first thing she basically says is, "Don't they smell good?" And she's also smoking a cigarette and inhaling the smoke from that. So I have a tough time here figuring out whether the comparison to the inhaling of the fumes is the comparison to her inhaling the smell of the cookies or the cigarette, but they're both there really just kind of to hit home. In case you didn't catch it the first time, it's with her smelling the cookies, it's there again when she's inhaling the cigarette. And of course she points out the "Know Thyself" sign above the door, inscribed at the Temple of Apollo. The Oracle of Delphi also had an inscription that said "Know Thyself." Socrates decided that with the comparison to Socrates, that the examined life was not worth living. Neo must also eventually know himself, meaning he must eventually know that he is the one. So unless he really examines himself, he's not going to figure out that he's the one or not. So kind of going back to the scene then. So, of course, she asked him, "Do you think you're the one?" And he answers, "I'm not the one." And again, she's guiding him, which seems like nothing in this movie by itself. We do have Morpheus saying, "Don't think of it in terms of right or wrong. She's a guide, Neo." But there's so much more to this as it plays out over the course of the 3 movies. She says to him, "Being in love, or being the one, is just like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just know it through and through." Then she says to him, "Sorry, kid, you got the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something else." He says, "What?" And she says, the next life, maybe. Who knows?" Which, of course, is a foreshadowing because, as we talked about in the hero's journey, towards the end, after he saves Morpheus and Trinity and the helicopter crashes and all that, they kind of believe he's the one, but he has one last battle. He dies and he's resurrected. So she says, it's almost like you're waiting for your next life. And of course, it's in that resurrection after he dies and then is reborn in that next life. He's truly, without any baggage at that point, the one, and finally has it all figured out. Moving along. We're doing really good here. One thing that's interesting to point out, according to the book Matrix and Philosophy, legend has it that at one time, all the people were allowed to inhale the fumes at the Temple of Apollo, but eventually they realized that they couldn't handle it. In fact, people were going up there inhaling the fumes, just jumping into the chasm to their death. So the people were unable to handle that power, that knowledge, that truth. So instead, an oracle was kind of put in place to be the almost the gap between the gods and the people in terms of knowledge and truth. So the oracle did the inhaling and prophesied in such a manner as to guide the seeker. Similarly, because the people it's almost like they weren't ready for truth. They had to discover the truth, meaning they had to know the truth, to be told the truth. To just accept it isn't knowing it. There's a difference between thinking it and then actually knowing it. So that's why in this movie, in the context of the first movie, there's this idea of just guiding him along. But the people couldn't handle the truth, so the oracle basically had to guide them into the truth, even if it was telling them exactly the opposite of what they were coming to ask for. They would eventually get their answer, but they would know the answer when they were walk the walk themselves, essentially. And then similarly, rather than simply just waking everybody up at once within the Matrix and saying, "Hey, guess what, everybody, this is fake," obviously everybody wouldn't be able to handle that truth, even when Morpheus says most people aren't ready to even be unplugged. So basically, the someone being the one, Neo, was selected just to begin revealing the truth to the people. Just like in the with the story of Socrates, the oracle almost basically selects Socrates to be her pawn in kind of beginning to reveal the truth to the people. Okay, so that's the similarity there. So we have the part here where, of course, Morpheus is kidnapped by the agents, and there's a little bit of dialogue here. The one that's notable is when Agent Smith says to Morpheus, "The first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where no one suffered, where everyone would be happy. It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world, but I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. So the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from, which is why the Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization. I say your civilization because as soon as we started thinking for you, it really became our civilization, because which, of course, this is all about." And it's funny when you watch the first movie and you see this dialogue, it's interesting. It's important in that moment, but this little bit of dialogue has much more to do with the context of the whole trilogy. But it's kind of one of those things where they obviously, you don't know how successful the first movie is going to be, but they did have to start dropping the breadcrumbs. They're like, hey, if this is big, like we think it might be, and we get to make part 2 and part 3, we have to put some of the foundational stones in the first movie so that there is the connection as we go deeper with the story. So this is actually kind of deeper as we look in the context of the whole movie, or I'm sorry, the whole trilogy, and get into the second and third. So we then get into the scene, of course, where Neo decides he can save Morpheus. He says, "I believe I can bring him back," and this idea of belief is beginning. Again, the oracle guided him this direction. She said, "Oh, you're going to, the one thing that I can prophesize and tell you is that you will make a decision between your life or Morpheus's life." And when he sees that, he has now the belief that he can save Morpheus. So he's going to start walking the walk, and as that big scene unfolds, he begins to do things and starts realizing things, and then he starts believing. But it all starts with this belief that he can bring Morpheus back. So it doesn't really start with the belief that he's the one. He even says in that scene, he tells her, he said, "The oracle said I'm not the one, but I believe I can bring him back." So he starts believing in something and following through with it. And as he follows through with it, there's basically, he does all the things that the one should be able to do, and he starts to believe that, and then he starts moving forward with that. So, of course, after they save Morpheus, Morpheus and Trinity get back to the Nebuchadnezzar. That's when the phone is shot. Neo is stuck there. He fights Agent Smith. He beats him back, taking more steps towards believing he's the one. And then he turns and runs. He has to get to a phone to get back. And the movie ends right back where it started, at the heart of the City Hotel, room 303. So the movie begins with the heart of the City Hotel, room 303. It begins with basically this understanding of, or this idea, the symbolism of Trinity, the room 303, the heart of the city, that an underlying theme of humanity. There's got to be a connection to heart and love and caringness, which again, foreshadowing what the second and third movie is all about. As we know, as soon as he opens the door, Neo is shot dead. Trinity confesses her love for him. He wakes up. He's reborn. We have the resurrection. And the interesting here is the words that come out of Neo's mouth when he is resurrected. All the agents fire their weapons at him, and he looks at them and he says, "No." And that "no" is so powerful because, again, we're taking now, what is the Matrix? It's control, and finally someone is standing up and saying no to control and has the power to begin showing everybody else that they don't have to be subject to this.